companies were calling me to host activations. The major influencers, like literally the top influencer in the game in America, like his manager contacted me to do activations with him. I had celebrities reach out to me to do promos and stuff, and I didn't even share it most of the stuff because I was like, let me see where it shakes out before I do it. But all of this stuff people were wanting to work with. It was insane, right? But I kept being like, this isn't, a lot of stuff wasn't aligned with my spirit.
Welcome to Via Creativa, the podcast. In this space, we talk all things the art of becoming, self-actualization through self-expression. I'm your host, Jessica Suarez, and I'm here to guide you into your most exalted, most radiant, most expressed creative self. Here we go. Hey. Hello, beautiful friends. We are here today with Lina Camboulin. Did I get it right?
Camboulin, if you want to be.
Okay, Lina Camboulin. We're here. We got it. I'm super excited. I'm going to pull out my notes just in case I need them for this part because I never want to butcher it. So Lina, actually, before I do the official, I met Lina in Mazunte for the first time, actually in Mazunte. But I think we were already social media connected before that.
I don't think so.
No, we met the first time you were in Mazunte.
Yes, the very first time, my very first ecstatic dance. Yeah. That one guy, I think Nathan.
Shout out Nathan. I love you forever.
And he was like, I was like, yes, it is another Black girl, Nathan. Thank you.
It's hilarious how people do that, but
right, it's common, and I get it, but it ended up being really cool. So sometimes it don't work. Sometimes I'm like, that's the only thing we have in common. Sometimes it actually is fruitful,
Sometimes it works out and we get to have conversations like this. So yes, I met Lina and Mazunte 3 years ago. Then that would be like back in the day. And you and Brielle had just finished hosting a retreat, right? In Huatulco, nearby.
Yeah, it was her first retreat, and I was coming to support. I had just quit my corporate job. So you actually were meeting me in like a crazy transitional life. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. And then we reconnected last time you were in Mazunte. I honestly don't know what time is. Earlier this year?
Yeah, but we also reconnected because you came in at Natalie's
program. Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Such a crazy small world. I was reading tarot at Business Magic Mastery, right?
Yeah.
Who is Natalie? I always want to say Natalie knows because of her Instagram handle.
Right.
Anyway, that's her Instagram handle. If you want to go find Natalie, she's an amazing business coach, and she was my very first coach ever. So definitely go check her out. Yes, our paths crossed there. And then again this year in Mazunte, when you were in a very transitional moment that I'm actually really curious. I have many questions about. Yes. But officially, Lina's bio, Lina is a holistic guide and oracle, embracing indigenous wisdom.
Period.
And so I have so many questions about that one. And 3 fun facts about Lina. She used to be a puppeteer. If you have one somewhere nearby, I'm going to have to ask you to do a little talent show for the video watchers.
I wish.
She speaks 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And she speaks to trees. So 4 languages, because we also have tree talk. We have nature talk. Love it. Okay, amazing. So let's dive right in. I want to start with this bio that says, it's 3 lines on my sheet, embracing indigenous wisdom. I say that because usually people send over like a long ass bio. And I just thought it was super hilarious because it's just these 3 words. And Lina's an amazing being, right? Like we want to dive into your work, but just like in general, how you are in the world, how you move through the world. When we first met, you were Skate Goddess. And I think that's still your handle on Instagram. Skate Goddess, that was your main offering. And slowly you've been transitioning into sharing, teaching, facilitating around African indigenous wisdom and practices and spirituality. And I've loved that so much. You created that beautiful Pinterest board of different indigenous art traditions. And y'all, for those that don't know and hear my accent and think I'm American, I'm not American, not even a little bit. I I am half Cape Verdean, half Mozambican. I grew up in Ethiopia, so I am fully from the motherland. And Nina's Pinterest board blew my mind. I was like, oh, I am being schooled. I am being educated in this moment. So I highly recommend checking that out. Lena, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at in life. How did this shift begin to emerge? And then also, yeah, I'm curious how you navigated that shift from skate goddess to, you know, holistic guide and oracle, because that's something we did talk about also on my rooftop on that balcony when you were in Mazunte. So let's get into the juice.
Oh my gosh, where to even start on that? I feel like in order to understand more about like me and my mentality, it's like to know my background a little bit more. Because especially as I go and dive into more of like the spiritual realms, like I'm in places like Mazunte, I'm in the conscious community. A lot of people are like, yes, I've been speaking to spirits since I was 5. And like that wasn't me. That wasn't, I was very much like, no, like Jesus saves, you know, super Christian, super like you're gonna go to hell if you play Pokemon. Like that's what I was taught. That's what was my background. That's how I grew up. And like I would be like, you know, just tell all the kids around me. I try to proselytize all the time.
Oh my God. A little Lena proselytizing, guys.
Literally. You know, I was a major, like I was a Bible reader, I was a prayer, I was every Sunday. So like that was my background, right? And my parents are also super Christian. My father, I think, was like a pastor. And so like it was like it's just in there. And then I was also deeply matrix minded. And I was like, I'm gonna grow up to be a doctor or lawyer. You know, as an immigrant, your parents tell you it's like very same for a lot of immigrants. It's whatever color you are. It's like you can be a doctor, lawyer, maybe a teacher. Like my mom's a professor at a university. So it was like those are the options. And I was like, yes, I will become a doctor or a lawyer. And I could go in on this. I'm trying to like do the abridged version instead of the unabridged. But basically I kept doing that. And then I was like, I'm trying to get the money. You know, I was very money oriented in terms of like, I need to get money so I can provide for my family because I'm the oldest daughter. So there's a lot of responsibility, oldest daughter, immigrant family. And so I became a software sales account executive because I was literally going to be a psychology major with a Spanish minor. And then I looked at the return on investment, you know, like what can you make as a psychologist? And I was like, that's not going to work, baby. So I pivoted to marketing and then I did what I had to do. Long story short, that's how I went into software sales right out of college, which was insane because I was the only Black woman. I was the youngest person. I was the only woman, you know, and like I was just around a bunch of like middle-aged and like retiring white and Indian men. And they were always like, how did you get here? And I would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. How, like, what do you mean? And so that came with a lot of challenges to the point where I just burnt out. You know, I wasn't supported. I didn't have the right resources. I didn't even know what resources I could ask for because whenever I would ask for them, it was like I was being gaslit. They're like, why don't you already know this? But I was like, I don't know. Like, that's a whole other story. But basically, I've always had an interest in the back of like, I always loved to dance. I always loved like the taboo. I always loved the esoteric. Perception, psychology always interested me. And I just like, was like, those are just interests, cottage interests. I'm gonna make a career or a living off of that. And I was always fascinated by magical realism and like the stories my father would tell me about my great aunt who was like a full-blown witch. Like, whoa, you know, so I never thought I never put all of that stuff together, but I started skating to heal from my burnout. I started skating to,
Okay.
because I knew I had like debilitating anxiety and depression. So I started skating to do all of that. And then a lot of shit went down internally and externally at the same time that we can dive into
Yeah.
later. But all of that background is important because it's like, yes, I'm transitioning into a space where I'm a holistic guide and an oracle, but it was like a lot of that stuff as I was skating was coming through. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really have the space or the know how to share it online because I started Skate Goddess for funsies, just to
Mm-hmm.
just to feel myself skating. And then my business coach was like, you should make that a thing. And I was like, sure. And then it was blowing up anyway. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I tried to like put like the message in code in my
Yeah.
comments, not my comments, my captions, and like kind of hint, just dress up as Oshun. But all of that was still there. And Natalie the coach kept
Yeah.
being like, say what you have to say for real. And the more I did that, the less it like really made sense with the skating stuff. But now I'm in a place where I'm working to like meld both because
Mm.
but the movement is a practice that helps me express the things that I'm downloading. It helps me connect to my downloads.
Absolutely.
It all melds together. So we're in a place of slowly transitioning it for it to make sense for everybody. And it's just been a super exciting journey. But yeah, that's the whole thing.
I love that. I love that. So much goodness. I
Yeah.
definitely want to come back to this movement piece and movement as a practice. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely anyone that knows me knows that's it. And I'm like, just go dance, solve all your problems, dance or get on a flight. It's very Sagittarian on me. I'm like, move your body, get on a flight, go to an island, those will solve your problems. Some might accuse me of being a little escapist, but that's a conversation for another day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, amazing. And I do have so many questions about your ancestry and your
Yes.
background and your parents. So I want to come back to that, but let's go into this transition. You're in this moment of bringing together these seemingly disparate parts, right? And I'm very kind of like anti the niche. I'm every business coach and marketer's worst nightmare. I'm like, I'm super anti the niche, right? Not even anti it. That's just like a fun way of saying it right now. But I have suffered the consequences a lot of like trying to niche myself down. And I'm feeling like I am expression in motion, right? Like I am creative spirit embodied. So no, I am not only one thing. I have found systems and structures for myself to anchor things and to direct things because I do think it's important to be able to direct energy, but we have so many sides and expressions and just being able to connect skating and movement and play, right? Like what I love so much about the skating thing is there is this inherent connection to play, which anyone who listens knows is like my favorite force. It's my favorite state. It's everything. And skating is so fun. And that state of play naturally just kind of like opens us up, and it opens us up to these things that we know, these things we have known, these things our ancestors know, and bringing that all together. And I remember when we were talking in Mazunte and you were like, yeah, I'm wanting to move a little bit away from skating and more towards sharing about this indigenous wisdom. And I don't know how, right? And especially because you had already found success with the skating. And
Yes.
this, yes, is something I want to get into. I want to know more of. What do you do? What happens when you become known for something where people are wanting more of that one thing from you, and you're like, also that version of me has died. I'm a new version is like coming through the chrysalis, but I know I can find success. I can find impact. I can find money from this thing that I've become known for. I imagine it takes so much courage and faith and just a whole lot of mess move through that. Tell us about that
Whole,
process.
whole body chills. Oh my God. Because that's been this whole year. I've been in a Kali energy this whole year. And for the uninitiated, Kali is basically the queen of death, and rebirth, like
Yeah.
of fire and just like destruction. She's very much like the volcano goddess. It's like, yes, she's gonna blow your shit up.
This is a
Ooh,
great deck. If anyone is interested in a deck, get Ma. Ma will
ooh,
guide you.
ooh, ooh, yes. Synchronicities, I love it. Ah, yeah, yeah, volcano energy, blow your shit up. But out of all of that darkness comes the seedlings of spring. And that's so early this year, I asked for clarity because all last year, I was in the space of like living fully in Skate Goddess, but also understanding that there were parts of me I had to suppress in order to continue to have the success that I knew I could get with Skate Goddess. The thing is, Skate Goddess became really popular in the pandemic. And I had a call from Spirit to get roller skates. And I was like still a baby spiritualist and still like it was very new to me to like follow intuitive nudges. But I knew I needed something to like to exercise, to move my body. It was either that or pharmaceuticals, and I was not about to do that to myself. No judgment if people find, that that's what it helps, but I knew for myself that there had to be another way, and I needed to try every single other option before I went to that one. And so I got skates, and then skating blew up. So it wasn't like skating blew up and then I was like, let me get skates, because like that happened for a lot of people. Wanted to distinguish, like it literally was, I started skating and then shit started popping off, and I started doing my thing, and people absolutely loved it. And it basically was like whenever I just put two steps in that direction, like opportunities would come to me. Like people were calling me to do stuff, companies were calling me to host activations, major influencers, like literally the top influencer in the game in America, like his manager contacted me to do activations with him. I had celebrities reach out to me to do promos and stuff, and I didn't even share it most of the stuff because I was like, let me see where it shakes out before I do it. But all of this stuff people were wanting to work with, it was insane, right? But I kept being like, this isn't, a lot of stuff wasn't aligned with my spirit. And I knew that if I wanted to have corporate acclaim, there are some stuff that I couldn't talk about, like maybe embodying Oshun and wearing that stuff and doing tribal things might not be accepted, and there's a lot of people who, especially in the Black community in the States, that okay, they're really down with skating, but they're not down with anything that's not God or not Jesus. I mean, not Jesus Christianity, and I mean like specifically white Jesus Christianity. If it's any diversion from that, even like astrology or Christianity or tarot cards or embodying Black divinity, it's a no-go. And so all of that stuff I felt like I had to suppress in order to continue to do what I wanted. And people were asking me to teach them how to skate. People were like, oh my God, teach me how to skate. And I was like, I don't know how to tell y'all that you're going to ask me to teach you how to skate. And all I'm going to be able to share with you in that is, okay, how to stand up, and how to move forward and how to do a spin maybe, and maybe how to do a strut walk. But the thing is, in the skating, it was the spirit that I was downloading that was making my skating look the way it is.
Yes.
But I'm like, y'all aren't asking me for that.
Yes.
And so you're not going to get the result that you want.
Yeah. Yes.
But
yes. Okay. Yes. Because this is so much of like my entire framework for art, or what I call holy art, or being a visionary artiste or operating in sacred service, and just like sharing that creative expression that moves through us, right? That very often, yes, but when it is like fully in alignment, it's not us, right? Like it's happening through us, or, you know, with the sculptures, I'm not making the sculpture, I'm unearthing it from the stone. I'm just revealing what's already there. And artists say this in so many different ways, right? Like musicians, painters, visionaries, right? Like visionary entrepreneurs, scientists. So many people are like, it somehow I receive it. Like, yes, I'm a
Yeah.
part of it, but somehow I receive it. And very often the question is, how do you teach me to do the thing you do? When
Yeah.
maybe the question should be, what do I need to do to open myself to receive? Because
Yeah.
then we also start to get like unique expressions of
It-
what we do, right? And I feel like I didn't even know this about, like, I knew you found great success, but I didn't know about all of the celebrities that reached out and all of this, which is interesting. I'm curious about your relationship to privacy and sharing on that as well. But
Mhm.
having that, I think, is so reflective and emblematic of the fact that you were just doing your own thing. Like, you weren't trying to emulate anyone.
Literally.
Yeah. And now I think what happens often, and you pointed to this when you're like, okay, skating became big, and then a lot of people wanted to get in on it, is that's kind of what the world of social media, of content, of like being visible or public can easily become, I know I have fallen into traps with this myself, like over the past 4 years, of just like then creating from the place of like, oh, I know this works, but it just worked for someone else, rather than really deeply connecting with ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so for you, it sounds like, okay, even to get the skates was a message, like you received that somehow. And I know from knowing you that you do work with like following those nudges, that intuition, the communication with spirit. But so how did you get from there, like baby spiritualist receiving the message to get skates, to where you are now? And what is the medium that most opens you up to that kind of like divine creative channel?
Mm. Let me do that in pieces
Take
because
it. Honestly, my questions are all just like starting points and invitations. If they don't even get answered, I don't care, because the conversation
oh,
is good and juicy. So let's get it.
okay, okay. Ask me the question again so I can just
I'm like, do I even know the question again? Okay. How did you get from receiving that message to get those initial skates as a baby spiritualist to then now fully embracing indigenous wisdom, and I'm guessing like really living your life by those nudges and that intuition?
yes. How did I get from there to here? I think it's just an unfolding because I was
Mhm.
so fascinated. I was so like in awe by the magic that would happen when you listen to spirit that I was like, I just want to keep following this. Like
Yeah.
so I'm a reflector, right? And like our design is how do I let me I'm trying to like if someone doesn't know human design, how do I explain this? But basically, like the magic of a reflector is to follow our surprise, is to like wait 30 days for decision.
Mhm, mhm.
And how we know we're in alignment with the right thing is by feeling surprise.
Yeah.
And so whenever you follow the call of spirit, you're always going to be surprised. It's never what you expect. It is almost
Mm.
expect. It might be what you want, but then it's like it came this way, and you're like, I should. Oh. Or you're just like, go over here, and then you go over here, and then you're like, holy shit, this was amazing. Over, all of that uncovering is so just so juicy, so
Mm.
exciting to me that I just kept following it and following it and following it.
Mm.
And so like that was the first thing. It was like get skates. So I was like, all right, shit, let me get skates. And as I got skates, like I remember I was like, I think I bought the skates and then I was literally walking outside of my um apartment and I saw this woman with skates on, skating so confidently.
Okay, yes.
Whoa. And I asked her like, where do you skate? And then she gave me all this info, blah blah blah. Let's go. We meet here at this
Mhm.
parking lot every Thursday. And I was like, oh, lit. Okay, this is where I'm gonna go. It was like 15 of us in a parking lot, every Thursday we'd get
Wow.
together. And then that shit blew the fuck up. because the pandemic happened, and
Yeah.
then everyone was coming out to skate. There's like 200 of us skating every single.
Wow.
It was insane. It was like, I wish I got more videos, but I was so in the moment. It was truly a movement, and that's
Oh,
how, like,
chills. Wow.
right, it was like everyone was like bringing their own music, like drinking, smoking, vibing, making friends, like in the middle of the pandemic, just living their best life. And no, people weren't, there weren't any supercells because we were outside, so like it was
Yeah.
just a healthy way to relate. I was like, this is what life should be, you know. um and
Mm.
that led me to a place of leadership in the skate world, because um wherever there is a conglomeration of people, there tends to be reflections of the vibrations of what's happening on the earth. So there were like predators in the space, you know, people who were using this
Mm.
beautiful energy to prey on women. And a
Mhm.
lot of women feel disempowered, but I'm like, there's a part of me that if there's a, I think it's a Libra part of me and the Aquarius part of me. Like if there's an opportunity for justice, I'm a buck, you know.
Mhm.
So I made it my mission to be like, we're not gonna like silence this. Like you're going to leave. It's not gonna be the woman that leaves. It's gonna be you that leaves. And so, you know, because I don't play that shit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, fuck that.
I'm afraid of what men can do. I'm like, he's just a person,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
person that is acting out his demons, and he needs to be told go the fuck home.
yeah.
And so, yeah, so all of this just kept unfolding, right? And so I just knew it was my place to be at the time. I started an organization called Boss ATL that started blowing up. That brought a lot of, you know, attention and stuff towards me. And then I just started getting the feeling that my time with it was over, but so much was coming to me through it, like acclaim and prestige and validation and all that stuff. Like I was like, I'm doing the right thing, like, right.
Yeah.
But spirit was like, it's time to close this chapter. And you know, I always try to listen to spirit, because when I don't, I'm at a point now where I've listened to spirit enough that if I don't continue to move on that path, um shit starts going left. So that's another
All
way to,
right.
like, I'm here because if I don't follow spirit now, shit just goes left. You
Yeah.
know, shit goes right when I fall, shit goes left. And I don't want to necessarily have this like, oh, I'm scared. It's more like spirit knows what's right for me. And
Yeah.
it's a test of faith each time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we're here. It's like whenever things aren't for me and I'm stubborn and I don't listen, spirit starts to put in agents of change.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and then I'm like, oh shit, okay, the agents of change are here. I guess time's up. You know,
It's time. Here we go.
here we go. I'm getting
So,
better at preemptively following the call instead of all
okay.
agents of change to get my
She's
ass.
learning. Evolution is happening.
Evolution is happening. Yes.
Um, so you pointed to your ear. You said says, you pointed to your ear and you did this a lot. Do you receive your communication? Are you clairaudient? Like, do you receive your communication? Like,
I'm
do you
clear.
hear it or do you like feel it?
I'm claircognizant.
Okay. Yes, me too.
Yeah. So
It was
I'll just,
interesting because you said a lot of like sound references. I'm like, oh, I'm curious.
I might be clairaudient because sometimes like I'll literally like like I don't know how to describe it. I've been like interested in like, okay, how do my clairs show up? Because people,
Yeah.
the way that they show clairs in social and pop media is very different from how it actually is.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
it's like, how do I need to know better how I receive so I can better cultivate it. And so
Mhm.
place of cultivating it, like I think I do get like these like literally just like messages of just like
Mhm.
go here, and I'm like, okay, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like it'll be like the small things like change lane, and then like something crazy will happen in the
Yes.
lane,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
or like put your energetic shields up, and then
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there'll be just knowings of like, just I don't fuck with that person, and then I
Yeah.
find out that that person on some other shit, you
Yeah. Yeah.
know.
Yeah. You're like, that's why I don't fuck with that person.
or I'll get like just full on packets of downloads of information. That is what I feel is claircognizance, and I'll just write it and be like, oh shit, that's like
Yeah.
pages of information.
Yeah, that's
So,
definitely, yes, I'm familiar with that state. And you mentioned earlier that you feel that you receive a lot of these downloads and this communication when you're moving, right? And for anyone who doesn't know, okay, if by now you haven't like looked up Lena, Skate Goddess, go do that. Go look at some of the videos so you have some context for what the fuck we're talking about. But you really dance on the skates, right? Like you move, you dance. It is very goddess emanation. And
yes.
so has movement always been a big part of your life? And what does movement mean to you?
Mm. Yeah, it's so interesting because I think what's so exciting to me about having a movement practice and being known for a movement practice is that I grew up very clumsy, not athletic, not sexy, like very uncomfortable in my skin. And I think I went to skating, like one of the things that I thought was cool about it was like, and putting the goddess stuff was I wanted all of that. Like I wanted to be sexy. Like so I was, but like I always was a mover, you know, like music would happen and I would just like just dance, just like dance however. And growing up in America and then being the only Black person mostly, like no one really would judge like my dancing, and there weren't really spaces for it, so we're all dancing badly. But then I was like in a space where it was mostly Black people. Like when I was in college, I joined a fraternity, co-ed business fraternity, and that was like the first time people like let me know that like not only was my my skate movement not sexy, it was not good. It was, so I was like feeling just like I was like, oh my God. And people always bullied me for being ugly. Like people told me growing up I was being ugly, right?
Oh my
So
God.
there was a lot of self-worth and self-confidence that I was lacking and then I was looking for. And I always saw women that were sexy and moved beautifully and were dancers. And I always was like, wow, like this woman moves with so much power, grace, beauty. People desire her. I want to be that.
Mm.
And so when I was skating, I really brought that to the place. Like when you skate, it's like this feeling of gliding. And I just like really I just loved like, what if I was a goddess? What if I was Oshun? And I would have these affirmations of like, I am a goddess. And I would skate like that. And it would just bring me so much joy and freedom from my daily life, which I was just in my masculine. I had to like lead teams. I had to lay down the law. I had to tell people what to do. I had to like really hold like a very like serious space. And like when I was like a skate goddess, I could just relax into it and just be like, just you know, just release. And I forgot the question, but
That I think that was the question. I forgot the question. That was, yeah, thank you for sharing. I mean, if anyone's watching, for those of you, anyone, for all the thousands and thousands of you that are watching the YouTube video version, I feel like it is quite like shocking or surprising, callback. Because you just do like ooze so much grace and femininity and beauty. And we have this like low cut, sexy top going on. We got a little cleavage, we got a little boobage, my favorite things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's that vibe. Like, yeah, like feeling yourself and being in your power and connected to that sexual force and that era. So like, what a journey, what a journey. And what an example.
Yeah, so it's like whenever people like would tell me like, oh, you know, a lot of people would be like, you know, I wish I could skate, or like, you know, I guess if I could fall like you, I guess I would learn how to skate, or like I don't really know how to move. It like makes me really like almost feel frustrated inside, because it's like it's what they're telling themselves that they can't do. Can't sit down and hold their hands and like have a 30-minute be like, girl, I was so clumsy and knock-kneed and people told me I was ugly and I danced bad and I would like trip over everything. Like why wasn't like this? I learned how to be like this through the skating practice.
Yeah.
And you can do it too. Like stop limiting yourself. Just get on the skates and allow yourself to be,
Mm.
the sensual woman that you are inside, because every woman is sensual. It is who we are. Just connect to it. Don't feel don't stop yourself from connecting to it.
Absolutely. I fucking love that. Take it in, y'all. Soak in it. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit to a lot of the work that you're doing now with embracing Indigenous wisdom and collecting, curating all of this amazing African Indigenous art. And I'm so curious, why art specifically? Like, y'all, this is a crazy Pinterest board. This is not like 50 pins on a board. This is like a curation. Please go check it out. What was the inspiration behind that? What have you learned from this process? Tell us a little bit about this chapter, this version of Lena.
Oh my God, it just excites me so much. It just excites me so much. So like as I've been skating and like making art with my body, it has opened up completely new avenues of creativity in my soul. Completely,
Pause. I need everyone to listen to that 3 times. And then I have so much spanda, so much aliveness in my body right now. So we're gonna have to come back to this part, but I'm gonna let you flow.
Yes, so like I grew up like, no, I did not. I was not a fashionista. But I admire people who did. I didn't know. Like, I kind of liked to draw, but I drew something overly sexy in middle school, and my parents were like, "What the fuck is that?" And I like just, I just put it. I was like, I don't know how to draw. Like, I completely forgot how to draw. That's a story. What?
What did you draw? Do you remember?
It is actually hilarious because I haven't really explored that much, but I'm like, that is actually me. Like, I didn't know I was me, but like, it was like this, how do I describe it? It was like these like women like floating in like, it was just a pencil drawing, right? And it was like this woman, and there's like a backdrop of like mountains in the distance. So she must have been like floating, right? And she's wearing like full like fishnet mesh top with a skirt. And like literally her nips are out. Like, and that wasn't even popular at the time. Like, her nips you could fully see her nips. She's wearing fishnet, and
we hadn't freed the nips yet. We had not freed the nips yet.
This was middle school, so it's probably like the O's 2000 O's, like not even the 10s yet, the O's. And like what else was it? Yeah, she just had like long, and I didn't have long hair at the time. She had like this long like hair, and she had these like almost like ghoulish looking like round circular like just black eyes. So it's like almost like she was like a mermaid goddess shadow woman type of like underworld thing. And like yeah, she just was like in my brain, and I just like wanted to sketch her out, and I just thought she was so fascinating and beautiful and sexy. And yeah, that was definitely not Christian. Not what we were taught that was Christian at the time anyway. So I thought I hid her in like my desk or something, because I was just working on her. And then I think my teacher found it, and she shared it with my mom, who my mom was like, "Why, what is this?" And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. I don't know what that is. But it is funny because I have like, there's like this goddess part of me, and then there's this part of me that loves like leather and like fishnet stockings.
Okay, great. The kinky. Okay, so many things. We'll come back to that too.
Right. I don't tell many people about that part, but it is. It's not a no-go, but it is. Yeah. It just doesn't really come up, so I just don't really care. But yeah. So to get to where we were, yes, the Pinterest board, how we got there.
Yeah.
And so as I've been developing more of my creativity, I was like, I don't like any of what they're selling to us in terms of fashion. And also I'm like, a lot of this is Eurocentric fashion anyway. I also was trying to look for like ways that we are as African descendant people, because a lot of the books I was finding was from a Eurocentric lens, and it just wasn't really, like there's this like, I'm trying to like stay on topic, but a lot of the books that I was reading at the time was from like a voyeuristic European lens, where they're like, all these fetishes that I hate how they right. I hate how they call our magical tools fetishes.
Yeah.
I'm like, the fuck is that? So for people who don't know, like they call it fetish markets in like Benin, where you can go to find your spiritual tools or your metaphysical tools. Right. They call them fetish markets, and that's like so fucked up. So, but that can like, that just tells you like
the lens, the perspective through which everything is being viewed. Yeah,
exactly. So I was like, I need to figure out a way for myself to find out the spiritual bases of these African tribes, and I want to know the African continent better. And I don't want to know it from the lens of I have a map of Africa on my wall, that's why I look this way. I don't want us to know it from the Eurocentric borders. I want to know like the tribes. What tribes doing. And so that's how I started collecting this, because I figured through the art, I can tell the spirituality, and I can tell the lifestyle and the values and so much more just through the art and the expression.
Yes. And that is so much the power of art, right? Like art creates culture. Culture creates society. Art is our history. It's our spirituality. It is the transmission left for us by our ancestors globally, right? No one is outside of that. And I think it's just amazing that we have this tool, this vehicle, whether it's music or movement and I love how you describe it as like making art through your body, then just like opened up your creative spirit, your creative expression, right? Because that's what happens when you start to get in touch with the creative spirit. All of a sudden it's like, I can't stop, or like, I can't stop. For me, it often also feels like I can't like I'm very much like, I need to extrovert my expression. Otherwise I start to feel like straight up unwell and unregulated if it's just like things are inside me. Cause I'm like, there's this life force, this truth, this experience that's wanting to move through my being. And to not is harmful and dangerous.
That's what it felt when I was in the box of just the skate part of Skate Goddess. I was like, there's all of this stuff, and there's still so much in me that I'm like, I'm trying to figure out where to channel it and how to channel it. I'm just like, I'm like holding this huge like fire hydrant of shit. Was trying like, where do I put it?
Oh my God.
And so I'm loving this conversation because I'm allowing some of it to like flow. But that's why a part of why I've been making this transition. That's part of what the Pinterest board was about. I was like, there's this stuff that I'm downloading that we have been doing, but I'm not seeing the books or like the conversation. So I'm like, I need to get more versed on this so I can like, instead of just saying it from a download of like a feeling that I have,
right.
Like the Ndebele people, they did this and this and this, and that's what their spirituality. This is why we do things the way we do it now.
Absolutely.
So yes,
I love that. And you also just touched on something that like anyone who knows me a little bit at all will know that I am a total nerd. And this is also something that we totally vibed on and connected, because it's like, yes, you can be the most intuitive, sensitive, like vibey, feely bitch. It's great. And there's so much wisdom. Like I am a voracious learner. I always say that if I was a trophy wife, I would have 1,000 degrees. If someone wants to fund my art and just me getting degrees, I'm open to it. Make me a pitch. Make me a pitch.
Period. That's what I'm saying. Like, just support me so I can just let this creative expression come, like,
I love that. So I do love that you like took the time to do the research in all these different ways and to like let the roots take hold also, right? Like materialize it. Because when we're receiving downloads and things from the crown, they do also need to be grounded, like to come into earth, right? Like they can manifest through the throat, but when we ground them, there's history, there's roots, there's ancestries, and there's legacy. We also then get to leave a legacy, which is something I'm really curious about, because you did mention, and I didn't know this until you posted about it recently, that you grew up very Christian.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you have a great aunt who's super witchy. Your grandmother and your mom both practice a lot of like indigenous herbalism. Was that always a feature of your life? Is that now, like, were they always kind of connected? I'm curious about that.
This is a great question because it really links into a lot of the work I've been doing to be at the place that I'm right now. Because a lot of this is about resurfacing our indigenous birthright. And what I mean by that is a lot of us, because of the slave trade and the diaspora, we don't really know our background. And so I feel like a lot of the issues when it comes to African spirituality is because we're so disconnected from what we used to do that we just demonize ourselves. It's a lot of and because it's like, if you go far enough, I know you got a great aunt, I know you got a great grandfather, someone out there was doing something magical. And to say that that's demonic is to demonize yourself, because that is in your genetic code. You're telling yourself that you are demonic. And so I've been doing a lot of what's the word? It's not timeline, but it's I literally
family tree.
Yes, family tree work. So I
drew it. It made sense when I was like, yeah.
Right. Family tree work, because I was like, I need to know what's in my family tree, especially as I've been doing research on different tribes and how they think, because a lot of them, like a lot of the work they do is like the mDNA, matriarchal DNA, and tracing that in order to, and that connects to your ancestors. This is a whole topic, but I'm trying to like remember what the question was, because my indigenous birthright, and if I grew up with that, because I didn't really. My dad would tell a lot of stories about my great aunt, but they sounded like they were mostly stories. But he would always be like hints, like I would try to surprise my dad and like come visit Florida, and he would call me and be like, "Where are you?" And I'd be like, "What?"
Okay.
So like he has like a gift that he hasn't really hadn't at the time really cultivated when I was growing up. But he would tell talk about how my great aunt would receive transmissions and had a crystal ball. I would have people come to, and it all sounded like made up stories. But then as I did more of the work, I realized that it was real. So I would ask more questions to my mom and to my dad. And the more I got to learn about my great aunt, the more digging my mom did. And then my mom was like, wait, my grandmother did XYZ. And so both of my parents were started being on their own spiritual journeys. And so I think this is the first time I'm stating this online anywhere, but my dad is currently studying to be an Ugon. So he has one more initiation left to be is basically a voodoo priest. And my mom is studying to be a shaman. And this is all connecting back into what our lineages are. And that's basically why I've been doing this work, because it is part of my lineage and part of what I should be doing. And so I'm not sure if I feel like there's a part that I wanted to hit, but that's, I think, enough for us to.
And if it's meant to come through, it'll come through. Do your parents are they still connected to the Christian faith tradition?
Hilariously not. Like, they're very much like, my dad has so my parents are both speakers as well. My dad has a TV show where he talks about basically he talks about the ills of internalized racism and what we need to do in order to get ourselves out of that paradigm. he's very controversial. He says wild shit.
Okay, we love that. Crazy parents. We love some crazy parents.
Yeah, on the internet, but he says it to wake people out of
Yeah.
shock people out, and that's his purpose. And my mom, she's like writing books and stuff about
Yeah.
about like changing your mindset and the details of what actions that the colonizers have done on Guadeloupe specifically, and you'll see it also in America, to spiritually enslave us. And that's something that's so interesting as a tidbit, so people maybe can go on a rabbit hole with this. Most of the sacred centers in Guadeloupe have either a church or a cross on them. And yeah, so it's like you can see that there is a knowledge and a deliberate effort to suppress our sacred connection. Because if you're going to say that none of that exists, it's not effective, why are you going to put a cross or a church on every single sacred point that people had? And so,
right.
Yeah, so that's kind of, we're all kind of in this space now, and it's kind of beautiful because not everyone has that as a family. Usually one person's like the black sheep and they're doing
yeah. That's amazing. I love that. I do feel like it's not such a conversation I want to go into, but yeah, the more we heal and evolve on our own journeys, again, as within, so without. So it does really start to be reflected in the people around us and in our families. And I think for different people to different extents, we're all coming in with different karma and different dharma. So maybe I would say definitely your story is the most like overt example of that I've heard. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. My parents are super down with all of my crazy, and they're very open-minded and they're very accepting. And yeah, they have their own evolutionary journeys, but to go from like church, Bible, Christian, to like TV show, voodoo priest, shaman, like big transformation in the whole family. And I just think for all of your descendants, crazy, the like curses y'all are breaking together collectively right now. Whoa, power. Whoa, power.
Yeah. It's just definitely really exciting it's like whenever you see the transformation, it's like when you're living a transformation, it's so slow motion. But if I look back at it, in like 5 years, it's like like explosive,
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. Shout out to your parents. I'm gonna go track down your dad's show now. And there were 2 more things I wanted to touch on. I'm aware of the time, but we're gonna get into them anyway because this is juicy conversation.
Yes.
One was, what did I get really excited about before? Creative.
Do we shake it on it?
Shake. It was something about. Anyway, that one escapes me. So we've talked a lot about creativity anyway. But let's talk about this fishnets and leather side of you. Because my mind immediately goes to like the kink world, the BDSM world. Anyone that knows me knows I'm very into those worlds, into that spaces. Fun little fact for those who don't know, I have my own goddess dominatrix flavor where I share work on certain platforms. But if you're curious, you'll have to come DM me and find out more. But
I will. You're
like, now I'm curious. But so tell me more about fishnets and leather. What do you, and because you did mention at the beginning, you like the taboo as well. So what is it? What's your relationship to these worlds?
I grew up like really fascinated about like feminine, like sex workers, like weirdly enough. Like even as a kid, like I remember in like middle school, high school, I would read about geishas like absolutely fascinated me. And also and just sex workers, and at the time we didn't call them sex workers, they were just prostitutes or
hookers and hoes.
But I was just like, why would they? And then also like I think I was fascinated by the wielding of feminine energy that they had. You
Yeah.
know, it was, they just knew how to wield this power. And I was like just so fascinated by it. And like the cultivation and the learning of it, the practice of it, especially with when it comes to geishas, like the thought of like at school starting, you know, to go and like learn how to dance, and the art of
Mhm.
makeup, and the art of like being, and the art
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
painting, and all of this stuff, just like that study of feminine energy, I think always really called to me. And I think that sex work is one of the few avenues that we have where feminine energy is an art form in the study that can be
Mhm.
respected and valued in a certain way. Um, and so that always was fascinating to me. And then I think I had a couple of brushes in my first couple of romantic explorations, where I think like one guy like I met was into like tantra, and so he had us
Mhm.
like meditate and breathe before we did
Yeah,
anything,
yeah.
you know. And I had never experienced that before. It was mostly just like guys just being like, let's make out and let's see how far this goes, you know. And then he was like doing yoga. We were like doing yoga poses and shit, and
Yeah.
he was like guiding me through breath, and I was like, this is hot.
Yeah.
You know, I was like 19, and I was just like, this is like so sexy. I'd want more, you know, him just like
Love
guiding
that.
through it. And then I had a guy that was like, I like the first person I was ever like fully intimate with. He was very like dom energy, and it
Mhm.
was my first introduction to that, into just to intimacy to that level as
Mhm.
well. Like just like the being being in like subspace,
Yeah.
I was like, just it's just this high, it's this like you I think it's just it's so spiritual if I really want to think about it, because like you're just really
Yeah.
in that realm of like you're not even in the 3D anymore. You're like somewhere else. You're just
Yeah.
experiencing, you're fully in the present. And
It's an altered state of consciousness completely.
yes, yes. And I I think that like sexuality was my first avenue into spirituality. Like
Ah, yes. Yeah.
mhm. And so yeah, and then I just always think that like just the sexiness of, you know, leather and fishnets, and just
Mhm.
that that side of maybe a little bit of just exhibition. Like I just love lingerie.
Mm.
I just
Mhm.
always have loved lingerie, and so just being witnessed
Yeah.
and being like served in that way,
Yeah.
just that really appeals to me. Um, and like I was exploring it really heavily for like a good year, but I just wasn't necessarily finding what I wanted, you know,
Yeah,
because it you have to be very your discernment has to be super high in these spaces,
for
super.
sure.
And so yeah, I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
but I still, and you know, it's still there, you know.
It's still there. There's still curiosity. There's still curiosity. Tomorrow, I'm actually interviewing a BDSM educator
Love
who I
that.
love very dearly. And yeah, so many interesting things. Have you seen the film Still Dangerous Beauty?
No.
Dangerous Beauty. I highly recommend. It's about the courtesans in Venice, so the era of the courtesans in Venice. And it's based on a true story, and it's so delicious and so inspiring. I have such a love for courtesans, and
Yes.
um in like a subset of Taoism also, they have the white tiger lineage, the white tigress lineage. Highly recommend looking into some of that stuff. But the
Okay.
idea of like refinement of sensuality,
Yeah.
utilization of sensuality as a service, whether the service is purely physical or beyond, is super duper fascinating. And it's so powerful and also understandably super controversial, because I also think we are in an era where I have friends that are sex workers. I mean, I guess part of the work. So I record guided tantric audios for those that don't know. So I talk about this once in a while. So you could say that's a form of sex work. I have friends that are different levels and different types of sex workers as well. But we're in a very unique era where women are consciously choosing that path, right? For themselves, for their journey, for their evolution. Whereas even now, there is still human trafficking going on. There is still a lot of things. I do not want to dismiss any of that. But like even 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't so much agency in it. And I think that this is such a beautiful reflection of this feminine rising time that we're in, is that we've reclaimed our agency around it for the ones that choose to engage in that way, right? Or that choose to, I have a friend who, she's a sex worker and she's also, wild teacher, energy practitioner, has been doing it for years. And last year she started sex work. And I asked her recently if she, like how her romantic life was, how her partnerships were. She's like, you know what? I found that I've become even more selective and even pickier. I don't want to have sex with someone because people are paying me hundreds of euros for that. So why just, and it was just like, it tickled me. It was such an empowered stance, right? And then I have other friends that are like, I won't even post a thirst trap because I'm very intentional about how I share my energy, which is totally fine, right? My Instagram is covered in thirst traps. Go enjoy, y'all. But it is fascinating. And that is the beauty of the feminine. We are everything. Also, there is the like more chaste version of the feminine that's just as valid as this like wild woman, dominatrix, professional sub space as well.
No, I love all of that because there's like there's the this temple dancer, for example, like the that would be where the wild woman would be in the old days. Like she's literally just like covered in oil, just dancing for everybody, and everyone's like, yes. And then there's
I will do that for your party. You can hire me to come do that.
Yes. And then there might be like the sacred priestess who you never see, like she maybe has sex once a year for like this like super, like for a super specific purpose, like out in the mountains somewhere, and you have to go find her. And those are all like the spectrum of the feminine, and they're all valid, and I think all of that is just like it's the right the correct reverence of feminine energy, because I feel like before men were so we've been in a paradigm where men were so afraid of feminine energy that they wanted to suppress it and hide it, control it, and all of this kind of stuff, and so they would put a lot of shame on feminine energy. And we're in a place where it's like there's no shame in any way that the feminine decides to express themselves. As the thing is, it's now on us to value it for how it
absolutely, to value it, to honor it, to be discerning with it, and to treat it with that reverence, with that exaltation and that agency and the choice, right? It's not a mandate on anyone either. It's just for those that feel called to that path. Oh my gosh, amazing. So many juicy conversations. If y'all have any questions, any comments, make sure to leave them down below. Find me on Instagram, slide into my DMs. I'm usually pretty chatty. And before we go, I'm curious about how you're channeling your creativity these days as offerings, as sacred service. What are you sharing with the world, whether it's retreat format, course format, beautiful Pinterest boards? How are you sharing the flow of creative energy with the world these days?
Yes, I have my Enter the Portal Pinterest board. You can find that in the link in my Instagram bio.
And we'll pop it in the links in the comments as well, so it's easy for people to access since we've talked about it so much.
Right. I think that's my gift to the world. I'm like, everyone should see it no matter what ethnicity you are, because it opens us up to a conversation of that we're just not having, of African art and its complexities and its subtleties, African society and culture. And like right now I'm very much in like an incubation period. So I have coming out, but I just had a retreat. I'll probably have another retreat coming.
Oh my gosh, yes, you had a retreat with your mama. We didn't even talk about Anyway.
I think everything we said kind of encompasses it, you know, like
Yeah.
she's been in Peru, like sitting with ayahuasca, and
Yeah.
she's been like learning herbalism and indigenous herbalism. And she's guided by her grandmother, my great grandmother, when she does it. And so there's like pictures you can view about that. I think the best way to stay in touch with me is to uh, sign up on my email list, you know, and to just follow me online, because in the next couple of months, I'm going back to Florida to reconnect with my parents. They're both over there, so we might do something in activation if that's what comes through.
Amazing.
And then my mother and I will be in Guadalupe for 3 months.
Beautiful.
Yeah, January, February, March. And so I'm going to be looking into a lot of indigenous practices of my own there and sharing what I can, you know, or just like collecting the information so it comes out later.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm really just like letting myself be open to flow in whatever spirit calls me to. So I'd love to be in like Belize or Tulum, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
I'll just like whatever comes to me. I'm like really just open right now.
I love it.
And so when it comes to people wanting to work with me and like have more wisdom or consultation, um, I have a book me link. So the free, like just a 30 minutes and we can talk if someone's like looking to dive deeper into their spirituality or looking to figure out like um how can they go on this journey of like uncovering their selves, uncovering their lineage, or like uncovering their creativity through movement. Like I'm leaving the book with me open just for however people feel called to work with me. And so it just feels like a really fun and free place to be at the moment.
Oh, so good. We love freedom. Thank you so much for this conversation, for all your wisdom, for all your energy. I'm so inspired. I had a lot of fun. I hope all you listeners are inspired and maybe feel a little bit more, inspired and invited to exploring African spirituality and art. As a person who did grow up in Africa, is fully African, and went to an international school, I find that often people that are not African can have some fears, you know, like fears of like cultural appropriation or fears of offending people. And my perspective might be very different from a lot of people, but I am like, if you came to my home, my entire family would like welcome you with open arms and would show you the art. And my grandma would make you the teas and my mom would braid your hair. She did that for all of my friends growing up. Some people might not like that, but she'll do it, and she'll do it with a lot of love. And I do think that what is beautiful about Africa and the motherland is it is a very welcoming and inviting culture and place. And I do think we don't have time to get into this, but I do think that that is something that in the diaspora communities is different because of the way that these communities and cultures were formed from the slave trade. And there's a different relationship there to foreigners, to others. And I think that that's, maybe we can have another conversation about that another day. But it's definitely something important to acknowledge.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But I hope you all feel inspired. Go check out the link. Any final messages, notes, words of wisdom?
I think what's coming through is like, don't let what society dictates take you away from who you know you are inside.
Ugh. Beautiful. Mic drop. With that, I'll see y'all next time. Thank you for being here with us. And my keyboard is disconnected. I'll see y'all next time.